Hi everyone, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. Please come on in and find your perfect spot for you. Good morning, everyone. We'll try that again. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. And good morning to everybody joining us on our live stream. Hello, and welcome to the Ethical Society of St. Louis. Whether you're here in person or online, you're a part of our community, and we are really glad that you're here today. I am Crystal White. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the volunteer host for Platform today. So that our program is not interrupted, will you please go ahead and check that no dinging and other sorts of bonus sounds might occur by checking your devices and turning them off. Thank you. To begin our gathering, please welcome up member Tom Neist, who is going to be performing Für Elisa from Beethoven. Thank you, Tom. The ethical education core values are relevant to all of our lives. And during the school year, we ask a young member of our community to read them to remind us of our shared commitments. And since the SEEK program is on summer break, I will read them today. Every person is important and unique. Every person deserves to be treated fairly and kindly. I can learn from everyone. I am part of this earth. I cherish it and all the life upon it. I learn from the world around me by using my senses, mind, and feelings. I am a member of the world community, which depends on the cooperation of all people for peace and justice. I can learn from the past to build for the future. I am free to question. I am free to choose what I believe. I accept responsibility for my choices and actions, and I strive to live my values. Next up, we have opening words, which is an opportunity for members to speak about something that is important to them or that they wish to share with our congregation. And it's our chance to get to know our members better. And you may be wondering, why is Tom Neat standing right behind me? Well, it's because he is going to be sharing opening words today.
Good morning. Guten Tag. We're going to be honoring some Germans today. When I was 9 years old, my father gutted his 40s era Magnavox, and he took out his Stax 78 turntable, and he replaced it with a turntable that played single 33s, 45s, or 78s, and he joined a record club. And the first one to arrive was Arthur Rubinstein's Beethoven's Fifth Concerto, The Emperor. There are many different types of music that resonate with different people, but I was enthralled when I heard this. I started piano lessons when I was 5, but this was a new sound. And I listened to it every day until the next record arrived. More on that later. Okay, so this began my love of Beethoven and classical music. Life meandered. I met Donna at college, married, had 3 daughters, joined Ethical. I was a CPA by profession, and Don and I had some investment real estate, so I started a company called Beethoven Real Estate. And I went crazy. I went out and I bought T-shirts, aprons, totes. With this iconic picture of Beethoven, very famous. And I bought this for Donna, and she refused to wear it. For me, I bought this one with a line of music, one of the most famous lines of music Beethoven ever wrote. Beethoven wrote his Ninth Symphony, and he set Friedrich Schiller's epic Ode to Joy to music with a German chorus. I'm tears every time I hear it. So there's a line in it, an iconic line, which that represents Alles Menschen werden Brüder. Translated means all men are brothers. And this reminds me of our core value. I'm a member of the world community, which depends on the cooperation of all for peace and justice. And Jake is now going to play a couple of lines of Okay, get the idea. All right, so the second record was Van Cliburn playing Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto. He was the first non-Russian to ever win the Tchaikovsky competition in Moscow, ever. This was during the Cold War, imagine that. And so after he did this, he made a tour of the United States, and I was 10 years old, and I saw a blurb in the newspaper that the dress rehearsal for St. Louis was going to be down at the Kiel Opera House Admission was free. I hopped a bus, I went down there, I sat in the front row of the balcony, and I listened to Van Cliburn. Life is good. Okay. So Jake's going to perform the first line of Tchaikovsky. You've all heard it, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded. That's enough. Not going to listen to the whole thing. Okay. So, in conclusion, I still have all those records and a turntable. And so the Ode to Joy is 13 minutes long. If you've never heard it before or would like to hear it again, we can meet down at coffee, and I live like a mile away. We can go listen to it, and we feel our spirits sing. Thank you. I didn't take that. Yeah,
Some of those.
I don't think so. Oh, yeah, it is.
Here, why don't we'll take them.
Oh, that's all yours, okay. I thought part of that was mine.
Well, I'll sort through them.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Members are encouraged to reach out if you are interested in delivering opening words one Sunday. We'd love to hear from you. Please contact Amy Miller or Andy Jackson if you're interested. Now I hope that I've delayed enough for Tom to be able to get back to the piano for our second musical selection, Adagio Cantabile from Grande Sonata Patatique. Thank you. Meditation and mindfulness have been shown to benefit focus, introspection, and emotional regulation. So before we begin our main address, I invite you to sit comfortably and to take several deep, slow breaths for 1 minute to help clear your mind and your body. Thank you, everyone. Our speaker today is our creative director and our leader in training intern, Louise Jett. Fun fact, tomorrow is Louise's birthday. Thank you for welcoming her up to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. So I am a proponent of big tent humanism. Oh wait, that's the wrong Felix Adler. That's the Felix Adler who was a circus clown. There we go. That's better. That's our Felix. He's the founder of Ethical Culture. And as I was saying, I'm a proponent of big tent humanism. For me, big tent humanism is the inclusion of secular and religious people who share the same core values and goals. It means that what we believe is less important than how we behave, or it means that what we believe, is less important than how we behave. It raises deed above creed and allows us to find allies in all walks of life. I have a hunch, based on life experience, that lots of people have no idea that they're living humanist values when actuality they are. I'm a religious humanist, so I consider ethical humanism my religion. I explicitly talk about my humanism, and many times when I do, people will say, well, I'm a humanist too. So in that spirit, in the spirit of this platform, I propose you just might be a humanist if, okay? So you just might be a humanist if you think knowledge and wisdom are best obtained by studying the observable world and using the scientific method. You are good to others because you think that's the best way to be. You cultivate meaning in your life and strive to make the world a better place. And you just might be a humanist if you love Star Trek. Oh yes. Star Trek is really popular in all sorts of humanist circles. I think it is so beloved because it embraces some core humanistic values. It is principled but not stuffy. It displays a brave defense of values, and it encourages us to be accepting of all people but not of all behavior. It's no surprise that Star Trek contains all these humanist values because the show's creator, Gene Roddenberry, was a humanist. There is little doubt to this fact because Roddenberry was explicit about his humanism, a fact his son Rod Roddenberry reinforced when he said in a Facebook post, "To label things, my father was most certainly a humanist." As proof, Rod linked out to an interview in a 1991 edition of The Humanist magazine, And in it, his father said, "I've been sure from the first that the job of Star Trek was to use drama and adventure as a way of portraying humanity in its various guises and beliefs. The result was that Star Trek, in the original series, but even more powerfully in the second series, is an expression of my own beliefs using my characters to act out human problems and equations." Gene Roddenberry knew that diversity is a strength we need for humanity to survive. Misogynistic and racist attitudes prevailed when Star Trek premiered in 1966. I know these attitudes are in some ways still prevalent today, but Star Trek serves an example of the progress that has been made. Roddenberry recalled a time when NBC asked him, "How many women do you have on the ship?" He said, "They thought we certainly couldn't have a ship's complement that was half men and half women." NBC commented that I should consider the amount of hanky-panky that would be going on if the ship were equally divided among the sexes. We argued, and I finally agreed with NBC that I would make the ship 1/3 women, thinking to myself with a chuckle that 1/3 of the crew complement of healthy women could certainly handle the men anyway. NBC also pushed back against the diversity on the show. Roddenberry said he received comments like, "Come on, you're certainly not going to have blacks and whites working together." To which he replied, "If we don't have blacks and whites working together by the time our civilization catches up to the time frame in the series, there won't be any people." He said this argument was so sensible that it even stopped the zealots. Roddenberry envisioned a future in which diversity was not just accepted, it was celebrated. He said the whole show was an attempt to say that humanity will reach maturity and wisdom on the day that it begins not to just tolerate, but to take a special delight in differences in ideas and differences in life forms. In 1966, to have a black woman on the bridge of the Starship was revolutionary. Uhura was played by Nichelle Nichols and was one of the first black female in a lead role on a TV series. She cut through all the stereotypes. She was strong, capable black officer working alongside white people. She also confronted another cultural taboo head on, and in November 1968, she and Captain Kirk would share an on-screen interracial kiss, the first of its kind. This kiss made an impact. It was broadcast only 1 year after the Supreme Court declared interracial marriage legal. It's funny because the kiss wasn't even really romantic. Sadistic human-like aliens forced the dashing white captain to lock lips with the beautiful black communications officer. But the kiss between William Shatner and Nichelle Nichols in the episode entitled Plato's Stepchildren helped change attitudes in America about what was allowed to be shown on TV. It made an early statement about the coming acceptance of interracial relationships. After the first season, Nichols was thinking about leaving Star Trek to pursue a theater career, and she decided to stay when one of her greatest fans, Martin Luther King Jr., convinced her not to leave the show. When she told him she was thinking of doing so, he told her, "You cannot do that." He asked Nichols, "Don't you understand what Gene Roddenberry has achieved?" He said, "For the first time, we are being seen the world over as we should be seen. Do you understand that this is the only show that my wife and I will allow our little children to stay up and watch?" And the representation didn't stop there. The show also starred a Japanese character, Hikaru Sulu, played by George Takei. Takei later came out as gay, and this became canon for his character in the reboot movie Star Trek Beyond. Takei said that he considers himself a humanist Buddhist, and that his faith is a way of life, a way of thinking, and a way of looking at the world. He once said, "Infinite diversity and infinite combinations, therein lies our strength, and therein lies our joy." In 2012, Takei won the LGBT Humanist Pride Award, and I want to watch just a brief clip of his acceptance speech video.
I'm George Takei, and I'm honored to be recognized by the American Humanist Association with the 2012 LGBT Humanist Pride Award. This recognition is particularly special to me because back in 1991, my old boss and the creator and producer of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, was similarly honored. He looked to the future as one where we have confidence in our creative spirit, problem-solving gifts, and our innovation to boldly go where no one has gone before. And he felt that it was the diversity of this planet coming together and working in concert that was our strength and also our joy. I've shared that philosophy with him throughout my life because I believe in the oneness of this world. I believe in the dignity of the individual and their worth. And I believe that we are all interlinked by the law of cause and effect. The good that we do produces good results.
I just love him. He's a humanist icon. If you don't follow him on social media, I highly recommend you do. He's great. And Star Trek produced some really great results. Star Trek teaches us that we can, via critical thinking and compassion, solve the problems that are facing us. We don't have any outside or supernatural help. All we have is each other, and that's enough if we work together. And lots of the show's fans definitely carry forth this humanistic values that were portrayed on the screen. And we can see the ripple effects of the shows in many ways. And I love this specific example. Roddenberry received this letter in 1973. And it's kind of hard to read, but I want to read it to you. Dear Sir, I have never written to a television producer before, but now I must. Last Friday, my parents, both in their 70s, were robbed in the New York City area while on their way to visit me. Their car and money were taken and they were beaten. After wandering in shock for nearly an hour, they had the good fortune to be spotted by a group of young people calling themselves the Star Trek Club of New York. These youngsters, none of them over 20, took my parents to the nearest hospital, paid for their treatment out of their own pockets, then went almost 20 miles out of their way to drive them to my door and help them inside. Several days later, I paid a visit to this club's meeting to repay them the money. To my surprise, they refused to accept my money. It was explained to me that they believe that Star Trek lives in them when they help those in trouble. Club rules forbid taking financial payment for help. They also said that Gene Roddenberry's prime directive was to love all humans, irregardless of race, creed, or color. There was a letter from you to them prominently displayed on the wall, which is where I got your address. At this meeting, I also saw Black and Puerto Rican youngsters taking full part in the activities. The club explained that they enjoyed each other's differences instead of fearing them. As a Black, I came away with a renewed faith in my fellow man. How did you get through to these kids? What is your secret? These kids really believe both in Star Trek and in you. As the producer of this show, you should be proud of what you've done. I will furnish these youngsters' names upon your request. I feel that they should be commended. And as for Star Trek, you can bet that my family are converts. To help these kids, the help these kids gave us, we must pass on to others. Thank you for letting me take up your valuable time to have my say. I've never encountered anything like this before. With their attitudes, obviously fashioned after yours, these kids will make the world a better place for everyone. Sincerely, Paul Johnson. So heartwarming. A beautiful example of the ethics in action and the impact that Star Trek had on its fans. Star Trek isn't the only place we can see humanism on display in popular culture. It's implicitly woven through TV shows, movies, books, and the Star Trek tradition. And in the Star Trek tradition, a lot of science fiction has humanism in it. For example, it is found within the books of the first Black woman science fiction author, Octavia Butler. I've enjoyed each of Butler's books that I've read, but Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents have so far been my favorites. Butler introduces us to a humanist vision, a future that makes space for speculative spirituality without the need for dogma or an omnipotent supreme being. Sounds like big tent humanism to me. I'll try not to spoil the books for you, but basically society is crumbling in America. The main character, Olamina, is living through a countrywide catastrophe, eventually called the Pox, which is short for apocalypse. She knows humanity needs a better way and develops a new human-centered philosophy called Earthseed. It's best described by another character in the two-book series when they said, Olamina believes in a God that does not in the least love her. In fact, her God is a process, a combination of processes, not an entity. It is not consciously aware of her or of anything. It is not conscious at all. God is change. She says and she means it. Some of the facts of her God are biological evolution, chaos theory, relativity theory, the uncertainty principle, and of course, the second law of thermodynamics. God is change, and in the end, God prevails. Yet Earthseed is not a fatalistic belief system. God can be directed, focused, speeded, slowed, shaped. All things change, but all things need not change in all ways. God is malleable. That's odd. Hardly religious at all. Even the Earthseed destiny seems to have little to do with religion. Olamina believed the Earthseed destiny was in the stars. The world she lived in was so terribly cruel and environmentally devastated, she believed she had to work toward humanity's rescue or it would cease to exist. Even though she may never see people make it to Mars or another planet or go there herself, she worked toward getting people there. It reminds me of the important and challenging work we have to do to fight climate change. Future generations are depending on us. It is essential that they inherit a healthy, inhabitable, and sustainable planet. A recent American Ethical Union All Society platform, it was on April 30th, featured the youth plaintiffs in an ongoing lawsuit, which is held versus the state of Montana. The lawsuit is the first ever constitutional and children's climate trial in U.S. history. Butler would say, we need to shape climate change in a way that will result in positive, or at least less negative outcomes while we still can. She wrote in the parable of the sower, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. The clergy members of Earthseed religion were called shapers. Butler encourages us to shape change when we can, and not just to recognize, but also work toward the change that is outside of our reach. She says God is malleable, and this idea resonates with my humanist belief system. I believe in the power of intentional ethical action. I believe we can shape positive change. I believe we can slow and mitigate the damage caused by climate change, end racism, dismantle white supremacy, and leave a healthier and happier place for humans and future generations. I have hope. We need to empower ourselves and our youth to ensure a future climate, a safe climate, and we must be explicit about our values and our humanism. We must be shapers like the young people shown here. Unfortunately, while we see humanist values portrayed on the big screen and in written works, we do not see characters who are vocal about their humanism in popular culture. Representation is powerful. Real representation not only strengthens our values by allowing us to see ourselves in others, fictional or not, but it also introduces our life stance to those who may also identify as humanists, but may just not know about our movement or our congregations. Again, I think representation is needed for all humanists, secular, religious, or otherwise, and I want us all to be under that big tent. I looked for explicit humanism in a lot of places. I tried to find representations of fictional humanists across genres. I came across an article from 2022 by Luciano Gonzalez Vega, who at the time served as the administrator for the Secular Latino Alliance. He wrote that mundane representation can matter just as much as epic representation. He said, I don't need humanistic superheroes, as cool as that might be. I just want more representation in any form. But his comment made me think, are there humanist superheroes? And I could actually find a few. So let's take John Constantine, for example. Constantine first appeared in Swamp Thing, number 37, in June 1985. He is described as a Catholic and a strident humanist who struggles to overcome the influence of both heaven and hell over humanity. He's foul-mouthed and witty. He does have some bad habits, but he's also one of the most powerful sorcerers in his world. There is a duality at play in Constantine. He is a humanist and a misanthrope at the same time. His motivations are ambiguous, and this adds to the mystery of his character. We also have Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic of the Fantastic Four. He has a complicated religious backstory, and you can actually look up the religions of all superheroes, by the way. Very interesting. He has been described as a humanist, a believer in God, and an atheist. I know some humanists who could probably relate to that. He's dubbed one of the smartest people in the Marvel universe. Reed was a mild-mannered scientist, and he's a classic example of superhero irony. The accident turned him into a stubborn, rigid, scientifically minded Reed into a rubber man with super flexibility. I think there's a lesson here that all humanists can learn. We must appeal both to the head and the heart. As we concentrate and rely on science and facts, we must not forget the importance of our humanity and emotions. If we don't, we could become humanist villains without even knowing it. Villains like the Albert Einstein robot. He was one of the nefarious mad thinkers, intellectual robots. These diabolical machines included Samuel Clemens, Confucius, Leonardo da Vinci, Virginia Woolf, Abraham Lincoln, and other historic intellectuals and figures. The mad thinker was a nemesis of Captain America, and he created the robots to provide intellectual stimulation that he was lacking. He was obviously lonely. The Albert Einstein robot, like the scientist he was based on, was explicitly linked to humanism and ethical culture. The real Einstein was a passionate humanist. He actively supported the ethical culture movement in the United States. He was a founding member of the First Humanist Society of New York and an honorary associate of the Rational Press Association in the UK. Einstein's philosophy had human potential and fellowship at its heart. He had a central belief in the need for humanity in science. He advocated the use of reason and compassion to curb greed and selfishness. His humanistic beliefs are a key part of his legacy, and he wrote about them, so we have them on record. But these convictions are frequently left out of his story. So again, we see explicit humanism being omitted from the narrative. Of course, implicit humanism is in most movies that address the themes of love, community, intellect, and ethics. Movies like Shawshank Redemption, which is based on a short story by Stephen King. Shawshank Redemption tells the tale of Anthony Dufresne, a successful young banker imprisoned for murder, one that he did not commit. He is sent to Shawshank Prison. Dufresne finds himself in an unfair position. He needs to stand up for himself and deal with the harsh life behind bars. He begins to go through a phase of growth and self-actualization, and he creates a plan to escape. The Shawshank Redemption takes a humanistic approach in its storytelling. Dufresne understands that he controls his own destiny and makes the best out of the situation he's put in. He's clever and observant. He also has heart. At one point in the movie, he says, "Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies." This movie is also important because it humanizes incarcerated individuals. It came out in the 1990s at a time when society was still pursuing and glorifying a punitive criminal justice system. On a narrative level, The Shawshank Redemption is a movie about the power of hope in the face of extraordinary hardship. But in Dufresne's story, we find a blistering critique of the prison system and criminal justice policy in the United States. In the film, the audience gets to see the system as harsh and corrupt, and those incarcerated there as people, human beings with inherent worth and dignity, ones who have a right to rehabilitation. In the 20 years since Shawshank debuted, and by the way, it bombed at the box office, public opinion in America has shifted away from the punitive view of the 90s to the more humanistic perspective embodied by the film. We still have some ways to go. But this exemplifies the power of storytelling to shape change. Humanism can also show up in cartoons, like one of my favorite films, Coco. Not only does the film have some great plot twists and music, but also embraces humanism by bringing forth several lovely themes, such as finding forgiveness for those we think have harmed us or who have harmed us. This endearing Pixar film reveals the power of long-term meaningful goals to shape our lives. Miguel, the 12-year-old protagonist, is driven to become a musician. Thanks to a tragedy, Miguel must keep his love for music a secret from his family until he finally tells them that he wishes to play at the De los Muertos talent show. When his abuelita breaks his guitar and forgets him to play, Miguel announces that he will no longer wants to be a part of the family, and he runs away. He's desperate to play in the talent show that evening and breaks into the mausoleum of a town musical legend to borrow his guitar. This triggers a series of transformations that brings Miguel to the land of the dead. According to psychologist William Damon, purpose is a part of one's personal search for meaning, but it also includes the desire to make a difference in the world, to contribute to matters larger than the self. For Miguel, his intention to become a musician is guided by his yearning to connect to his ancestors. And this goal leads him to resolve a long-standing misunderstanding about his ancestors, ensuring that their true identities are known and their memories survive. When he returns to his living family, Miguel's love for music becomes a means to connect his family members across time and distance. Our love for each other will live on forever in every beat of our corazón, he sings. I carry my community in my heart too. I could go on and on about my favorite books, movies, and TV shows that feature implicit humanism, but I want to take a moment and point out some famous humanists like Bjork, Ta-Nehisi Coates, George Clooney, Stephen Fry, Natalie Portman, Frank Zappa, Miley Cyrus, Zadie Smith, Virginia Woolf, Salman Rushdie, Kurt Vonnegut, Margaret Atwood, Alice Walker, Kristen Bell, James Baldwin, and Zora Neale Hurston, just to name a few. So we are in good company, my friends. But we need to start being explicitly humanist in public spaces. We need to lead by example so there can be more everyday characters who verbally express their connection to humanism, and more humanist superheroes who demonstrate that we can have morals without worshiping a deity. Humanist fictional characters illustrate the fact that we can develop our own ethics and strive to live our values without the threat of never-ending damnation. I encourage us to not only let our humanism show up anytime we're in a relationship with others and ourselves, but also to vocalize our values and claim our humanism. We can increase the visibility of our life stance by being explicitly humanist. And if people can see it, they can be it. The more creative individuals who identify as humanists, the more representation that we will see in popular culture. We know stories can be an escape from real life, a much-needed respite. But as Star Trek and Shawshank Redemption so effectively show us, new fictional experiences can also change our perspectives and change our behavior in our real lives. The changes can be life-affirming and life-saving. Shifts in perspectives can lead to the granting of human rights for oppressed and marginalized people. Being in popular culture can help people who don't even know they're humanists find us. This awareness is critical to the health of ethical humanism, and all forms of humanism, really, and we need humanism to guide us now more than ever. One day soon, I'd love to say that we're going to need a bigger tent. Thank you.
I love the thought of being a humanist superhero. And you don't have to be like individually wearing a cape to do that. That's just your everyday experience. Awesome. Thank you, Louise. The Welcome team will now take up a collection. If you're moved to make a donation today, we appreciate anything you may be able to offer. We, like all nonprofit organizations, rely on the generosity of our members and friends to ensure that our community could keep providing our many free programs. And if you don't have cash with you today and you still want to give, you can donate at ethicalstl.org/donate or use the QR code that's on the screen. If you're interested in becoming a member of the Ethical Society, our membership and program manager is Courtney Scott Camarata. She's here today and she can answer your questions about membership or programming. Also, you can find her email and a whole bunch of other emails on the back of your program. Meanwhile, we love to keep you informed about future events at the Ethical Society of St. Louis. If you'd like to join our weekly newsletter, use the QR code that's above me to sign up. You can also sign up on the website. Announcements for most things that happen at the Society come through the email. And in fact, I pulled up my email to share with you that right after this, we're gonna have Donuts with the Director or the Finding Connections Book Club. And this evening, there's gonna be Humanist Hangouts and an ice cream social, right? So there are lots of things that are happening here today even that you might be interested in. Check your email, friends. Additionally, Stephanie Segala would like to come up and offer an announcement for you all.
I'd like to talk to you about flowers. We used to have flowers every Sunday at Platform, but the person who used to do that has gone on, and we had COVID, and we didn't used to do it. But now it's summertime, and I think we've got some gardeners in this community, and so I would like to, if I can, encourage those of you who do have some flowers in your yard or want to go to a flower shop to bring some flowers to Platform on Sunday. I did the ones today. You may not have quite this many. We have a big yard with a lot of flowers, but a few on the check-in table. We can't have too many flowers. So if that's something that you would like to do, again, you can't have too many. So bring them. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. And if you bring flowers and you don't want to keep them yourselves, you can offer them to your new friends downstairs. That would be a lovely thing to do. Right. Your program says that we're going to hear Tom perform another Beethoven piece, but there's been a slight shift in plans. Instead, we're going to hear him perform Schmetterling by Gustav Merkel. Please welcome him up to the piano. Thank you, Tom. Tom shared with me that Schmetterling means butterfly in German, and I could hear that in the pieces. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today. There's coffee hour downstairs in the Becker Room, which if you're new, you can find through those doors over there, down the stairs, or with the elevator. Additionally, after our platform today, down the stairs, but in the Hanky Room, they're having donuts with the director, and in the Butterfly Room, there's the Finding Connections Book Club. There's all sorts of things happening here today. But if you go to coffee hour and you're new and you'd like to be approached for conversation, just go ahead and have your coffee in a yellow mug. Visitors are also invited to check out the Visitors Connect table for more information about the Ethical Society. We hope that today's gathering helped you feel more connected to other people, that it gave you new and interesting ideas, and inspired you to think about the values that guide your life. And to end our program, I invite you to greet those on either side of you if you want, and I wish you a wonderful week.